Not so very long ago, large parts of our globe were still uncharted. The map makers of the time covered the gaps in their knowledge as best they could. Over bits of ocean that might contain islands, they drew sea monsters or galleons. And over the heart of what was then called the Dark Continent, they put the best excuse they could for the lack of exploration. Here be dragons. One of the last major areas on Earth to be mapped was East and Central Africa, the mysterious and mythical source of the mighty Nile. The geographers and soldiers of fortune who penetrated here traveled through the most spectacular collection of wildlife on Earth. The animals were no great barrier to their explorations, but as the mapmakers had unknowingly but correctly said, here, indeed, there were dragons. The dragons were Nile crocodiles. 200 million years ago, the Earth was ruled by dragons. And for the next 150 million years, crocodiles, primitive lizards, and the great dinosaurs were the dominant animal life forms on this planet. What caused the dinosaurs to become extinct is still a matter for conjecture. But what is certain is that the crocodiles survived. Enormously successful creatures that are still found in warm latitudes right around the Earth. Like all reptiles, crocodiles are so-called cold-blooded creatures. Their blood is not actually cold, it's normally the same temperature as ours, but they rely on external heat sources to regulate it. This they do by moving in and out of the water and basking in the sun. When they get too hot, they move into the shade, or open their mouths for evaporative cooling. If still too hot, or if they're disturbed, they slip back into the water. In the water, with their powerful tails and webbed feet, they are superbly adapted for swimming. Their nostrils, eyes, and ears are all arranged just above water level, so they can lie in wait for prey with only the minimum amount of head showing. Perhaps the most spectacular crocs in Africa live here in a series of pools along a 10-mile stretch of the tiny Grumeti River in Tanzania's Serengeti National Park. They are monsters, and they have a unique lifestyle. Most large reptiles can go for long periods without food. The economy of these crocs is based on a huge feast just once a year. A mere stream for most of the year, the Grumeti shrinks to a series of greasy pools in the dry season. But there are dragons here as plentiful and fearful as any in legend. It is early in the dry season. The dominant males have begun courtship, and sex raises its ugly head. In fact, this is a submissive posture by which the female indicates her acceptance of her suitor and lets him know that she will not attack if he tries to mate. Mating takes place in shallow water, and 1 month later, the eggs will be laid. As the water level drops, life becomes easier for those smaller predators who share the river with the crocs. This is a marsh mongoose, a solitary creature that feeds mainly on crabs and shellfish it finds in the shallows with its nimble and sensitive hands. This one is after mussels, which he will break by throwing against a rock. Failing to break it in the shallows, he carries it to a favorite anvil stone. The mongooses are sometimes caught and eaten by crocodiles. But like many of the small creatures along the river, there are times when it benefits from the croc's presence. A large croc will catch and eat almost anything, from a frog to a 1-ton buffalo. They will scavenge too. A fish eagle returns to feed on a catfish it caught earlier, but is unable to carry away. For most of the year, the Grumeti River crocs make do with such slim pickings. But then, one cold morning in the dry season, something happens that changes their lives and makes this population unique. There is a rumbling in the distance that the older crocs recognize and respond to. The wildebeest are coming. There are over 1 million wildebeest in the Serengeti, and every year their migration in search of grass and water brings them to the Grumeti and to these pools. Only a small percentage of the population comes down to the crocodile pools. The chance that any of them have drunk here before is small, so they are unaware of the danger. The calves are only 6 months old, so they have never seen a crocodile in their lives. Even when a sandbank forces the croc to expose its back, the wildebeest do not recognize the threat. Baboons generally bark a warning when they spot predators and make good watchdogs for the herds. They are frightened of crocs, as their behavior when drinking or crossing the river shows. But they have lived alongside these dragons all their lives, so unless they feel the troop is threatened, they ignore them, and their relaxed behavior helps to reassure the herd. But even without crocodiles, drinking is always a dangerous time. The wildebeest are keyed up for flight, so the crocs miss many more than they catch. The croc weighs over a ton, the wildebeest 300 pounds. There can only be one outcome. Crocodile jaws are designed like a steel trap, with teeth like spikes to hold the prey. They do not have specialized teeth like other carnivores for cutting meat and shearing bone, or even jaws capable of chewing action. Some Africans call them the animal that kills while it's smiling. With a large carcass, several crocs simply grab hold of the animal and use their huge bulk and strength to twist a piece off. And an adult wildebeest comes apart like a rag doll. Cooperating in this way to break up a carcass and share the meat shows a high degree of social organization and is unique among reptiles. The wildebeest drink at these pools for only a week or two, but in that time the crocs become completely engorged. The metabolism of a large crocodile is so slow that, like a python that has swallowed a goat, it will not need to eat again for many months. In fact, some of the largest crocs may not eat anything substantial until the migratory herds return. This annual wildebeest feast maintains a population of crocodiles on this little river that are probably the largest and most exciting in Africa. The dry season tightens its grip. The water stops flowing, and storks and pelicans come to harvest the dwindling pools. Soon there will be nothing for the birds, and they will move on. The Grumeti flows west through the Serengeti National Park and joins the waters of Lake Victoria, Africa's largest lake. And the lake, in turn, empties into the Nile, Africa's longest river. Then, in northern Uganda, most of this mighty flow is suddenly squeezed through a 27-foot gap, the Murchison Falls. These falls hold no records for height or volume, but for sheer violence, there is nothing quite like them. Downstream, where the river spreads itself out again, the dragons are nesting. On traditional beaches that they use every year, the females dig down a couple of feet and lay up to 80 eggs, about the size of an elongated tennis ball. They are incubated by the heat of the sun, but the females lie on top of the nests to protect them from predators, so making the beach a safer place for other would-be egg layers. The soft-shelled turtle would like to lay her eggs on the heavily guarded beach. The trick is getting past the guards. It looks highly dangerous, but the turtle's shell, though soft, is a perfectly designed shield. This time she's seen off, but she will keep trying. The benefits of nesting on a protected beach are worth the risks. Weavers, too, find it worthwhile, for though their tightly woven nests are safe from most predators, they are vulnerable to snakes and monitor lizards, and the crocs will chase these away. But like any accommodation with first-class security, the rent comes high. Any tenant who does not take reasonable precautions may end up paying in full on behalf of the colony. On a per-head basis, not a bad deal for such a lethal watchdog. The water thick-knee, or dickup, is a plover-like bird that has a very strong association with crocodiles. Moving slowly and keeping a low profile, she may lay her eggs within a couple of feet of her scaly sentinel. The turtle, the weavers, and the dicop are all seeking protection. And this is what they fear. The monitor lizard is a pocket-sized dragon that grows to about 5 feet. Alert and efficient predators, their favorite food is eggs. Anybody's eggs. The spur-winged plover is nesting on a beach that has no crocodiles. The birds will put up a brave defense, but without the fear of crocodiles to deter it, the lizard can make a leisurely search. Back on the Crocodile beach, where the dicop creeps past its giant minder, the dangers of nesting among crocodiles are outweighed by the advantages. And the main benefit seems to be that any monitor that visits the beach is apprehensive and jumpy. The dicop's aggressive display, though less forceful than that of the plover, will be enough to send the already nervous lizard scuttling. For 90 days, this beach has been a safer place for several species, thanks to the guardian female crocodiles. Their concern, of course, has been solely for their own eggs, and now their devotion is rewarded. Suddenly, one evening, the nest beaches begin to sing. Below the sand, inside the eggs, the young crocodiles are signaling that they are ready to break free. The females now have an exhausting task. This evening and in the morning, they will dig down to open up the nest so the eggs can hatch, and reveal another extraordinary aspect of these ancient and complex reptiles. At dawn, a female comes ashore to finish digging out her young. The calling of the hatchlings attracts monitor lizards too, and they become bolder in their raids on the beach. This one has found a turtle's nest out on the edge of the beach. And the squash ball-sized eggs seem just made to measure. Several nests may hatch at the same time, but the females have no problem recognizing their own young. Perhaps they identify them by their calls. The young crocodiles cannot break free of the eggs until the nest is opened up, and sometimes the female must dig down 2 or more feet, something she is not well adapted to doing. Driven on by the chirruping of the young, she finally exposes the eggs, many of which hatch explosively almost as soon as they are uncovered. This event brings about a complete transformation in the female croc. From a monstrous killing machine, she becomes a caring and infinitely gentle creature. Her priority now is to get the young safely to the water, and the safest place on the beach is inside her fearsome mouth, the floor of which drops to form a pouch to carry them. The hatchlings beg to be picked up, but she also picks up the unhatched eggs and with great precision squeezes them just enough to crack them open. Those jaws can shred a buffalo, and the point loading on those teeth is enormous when the croc is biting. But there are pressure sensors at the base of each tooth, and when she wants to, she can use them as delicately as forceps. The monitor lizards know their chance will come, for when she has about 20 young in her pouch, the female must take them down to the river, leaving the nest unguarded. Finding a shallow place out of the current and with weeds for them to hide in, she gently shakes her jaws to wash out the eggshells and hatchlings. It is a dangerous new world for these babies, but the female cannot spend any time settling them in. For back on the beach, the dangers are even greater. With the female away, the lizards move in to play out one of the oldest continuing dramas on this earth. A large female lays up to 80 eggs a year and may breed for 50 years. In a stable population, only one of those thousands of eggs needs to reach maturity. So every year the nesting crocodiles provide this great feast for the small creatures that share the river with them. No other predator passes energy down the food chain in this generous fashion. Back in the water, the scent of the eggshells has attracted fish, who come to tear out the membranes. The tiny crocs are in danger here too, and must hide among the reeds. In the open water, there are Nile perch up to 100 pounds, as alert and voracious as any monitor lizard. The dickup's egg has hatched, and now that the monitors are bolder, both adults are kept busy holding them at bay. This time, when the croc charges ashore, she passes close to the dickup family. The chick freezes, and the female throws herself into a different display. This is not the aggressive show that frightens off the lizards. This time, she is feigning an injury, flopping helplessly in front of the croc to try to lure it away from her chick. It works. The croc is fooled and lumbers after her. In the confusion, the croc's attention is switched to a monitor lizard. They go for him instead. And for the dickups, the moment of danger has passed. But not yet for the baby crocs. The mother must make 4 or 5 trips to the river with her mouth full of hatchlings, and until she has moved them all to safety, the raiding will continue. Despite all the females' efforts on many beaches, monitors and other predators wipe out over half the eggs and young. When this tender carrying of the young was first observed, it was thought that the babies were being eaten, and for years crocodiles, especially the males, were said to devour their offspring. In fact, killing and eating newly hatched young is extremely rare among crocs, and the male is usually as protective and gentle with the babies as the female. But on this beach, that extremely rare and terrible thing is happening. This male is not gently taking the hatchlings into his mouth. This male is a cannibal. We do not know whether he is the father of these young or a stranger, but when the female tries to return to her nest, he uses his superior size to drive her off. He threatens her, and she adopts a submissive posture and moves away, leaving him to return to his gruesome meal. Now is the time, too, for the soft-shelled turtles to hatch. In complete contrast to the crocodiles, these biscuit-sized babies break out of their eggs and dig their way to the surface unaided. They then scuttle to the water without any protective cover from an adult. Their mothers did provide some protection. They laid their eggs on a crocodile beach, where they had the benefit of those heavyweight guards. But what about these tiny morsels, as obvious and irresistible as the last peanut on a plate as they scamper down the beach? Won't they get eaten by the guards? Won't they, like the weaver birds, have to pay for their protection? After 200 million years of coexistence with crocs, the turtles have got it worked out. There is an old saying in the army, if it moves, salute it. If it doesn't, paint it. Although the crocodile is the most advanced of reptiles, its brain works in a similar primitive fashion. For most of the year, the command would be, if it moves, eat it. But while they are nesting, the females seldom eat, and if, during this time, there is something small and helpless on the beach, the command seems to be, if it moves, mother it. The croc picks up the baby turtle and takes it into her gently smiling jaws. For the female turtle, the attacks she suffered to lay her eggs near the crocodiles have paid off. Her young get a relatively safe passage across the beach, and one of them even gets carried down to the water. This glut of eggs the crocodiles provide every year is shared by a mixed bag of creatures. The marsh mongoose makes a quick visit to grab one while the female is taking a mouthful of young to the river. Birds come to eat the egg shells to get the calcium they need for their own eggs. Pied wagtails, striped-breasted swallows, and long-tailed starlings. Baboons come, and like any humans on a beach picnic, they fret about getting sand on their eggs. The grey-headed kingfisher uses the old crocodile nest as a start for its own excavations. Diving beak first at the small bank the crocs have provided, the kingfishers make a start on a hole that will eventually be a couple of feet deep. And so, long after the crocs have finished nesting, there will still be eggs hatching on these special beaches. For their first few days, the 10-inch hatchlings live off their yolk sacs and stick together close to the place they first swam out of their mother's jaws. The female is still constantly on guard. She defends her stretch of shoreline against intruding crocs who might eat the young. But their numbers are gradually whittled away by predators both in and out of the water, and there will be 90% mortality in the first year. Protecting the young is an unrelenting task which the female will keep up for several months. But she does have a trick that gives babysitting a whole new meaning. For if no man is an island, the same cannot be said of a crocodile. For the first couple of months of their lives, Mum makes a perfect refuge for the young, and they all gather on top of her as soon as she is available for basking. The babies, with their very thin skins, are tormented by tsetse flies. But in a way, they owe their existence to these flies. Tsetses are the carriers of sleeping sickness, and this part of the Nile was made a national park only because this disease had depopulated the area and made it uninhabitable for humans. Back on the Grumeti River, the year has come full circle. The pools are shrinking, and thousands of small catfish called squeakers come to the surface to gulp air. The wood stork catches them with ease, and even small crocs are tempted to take advantage of the weakened fish. In their first year, crocs eat mainly insects and later move up to tadpoles, frogs, and fish. This one is trying to move up a little too fast. A dragon and a dragonfly. The youngsters keep away from the adults now and hang out in these mixed age groups. They grow about a foot a year at first, slowing down as they get older. It will be 10 or 15 years before they're ready to tackle a wildebeest. They come down to the pools as they do every year, thirsty innocents, glancing without much interest at the strange shapes floating in the water. And as always, there is a week or two of primeval carnage until the crocs are full. Then there is a strange and spooky truce. Like human diners presented with a trolley of sweets at the end of a huge meal, the crocodiles cannot resist looking, but nor can they eat another thing. Only if one is accidentally stepped on is there any action. The croc weighs over a ton, the wildebeest 300 pounds. There can only be one outcome. Or can there? The croc really isn't hungry, and as we know, he has complete control over those massive jaws. The animal that kills while smiling can, it seems, also laughingly let go. Incredibly, the wildebeest walks away, unworried and unmarked. Every year, the great herds that thunder across the Serengeti come to these pools on the Grumeti and sacrifice a few dozen lives so the rest may drink. For the wildebeest, it is a small milestone on a long trek. For the crocodiles, it is crucial. These 16-footers are among the largest and heaviest crocs in Africa. A few could live along the Grumeti on a diet of catfish, but not this collection of monsters. Just as many of the smaller creatures along the river rely on the annual banquet of crocodile eggs, this unique population of crocs relies on the yearly feast provided by the migrating herds. They exist only because of the wildebeest. Africa is speckled with great lakes and laced with wide rivers. A puny stream that a baboon can jump over in the dry season, the Grumeti is the last place you would expect to find such a spectacular show put on by the world's most dramatic reptiles. So even today, as satellites chart our planet with impressive accuracy, and there are no more blank spaces on the maps, over this little corner of the Serengeti could still be written, "Here be dragons."